Hello everyone, my name is Christina, and today I'm going to discuss the professionalism and future of marriage and family therapy. Before we get started into the discussion, I'd like to discuss a little background regarding marriage and family therapy. Family therapy's original founders are John Bell, Don Jackson, Nathan Ackerman, and Murray Bowen. These founders recognized the necessity to investigate the connections individuals had. They noticed issues that individuals were going through could potentially be caused by their external environments or external factors. Family therapy took off in the 1960s, and theory started to look at individuals' families, which they called systems, as a source of the issue and aimed at tackling the system to resolve clients' complaints. For this assignment, we were asked to interview MFTs and ask a variety of questions pertaining to the challenges they faced, the impact on law and ethics, and working with individuals with a multicultural lens, as well as the challenges they feel future MFTs will have and the future of the MFT profession. And we'll take a dive into Catherine McDonough. She is a licensed marriage family therapist. She is a private practice therapist. She works from home, mainly doing telehealth work, and she started her practice in Westlake Village and now is up north. She does see clients that are outside of California on a limited basis, and we'll touch that in a little bit. So I asked her a variety of questions of how the challenges she faced as becoming an MFT and in her current line of work, as well as challenges for us students going into the field, trying to see what we can do or advice she can give, as well as her cultural awareness to see how the variety of cultures she's been exposed to, whether she's had challenges or any advice in that pertaining area. She offers some licensing advice as to what we as students can look for and anybody interested in the MFT field to gain a little more insight to be more prepared, as well as the future of her profession and eventually our profession and what that could mean for us as a whole. So I'll get started in the challenges she faced as well as the impact on law and ethics in her career. The one thing that she finds that she always has a hard time with is keeping up with documentation and the time requirements regarding her payments. Because she's a private practice MFT, she needs to make sure that her documentation is up to par with the new regulations and the ethical guidelines that the AAMFT Code of Ethics states. They are ever evolving, and sometimes not enough information is placed in her notes that she would need to update them. She also suggests that she also does her personal notes as far as sessions goes. So in the beginning, she found it hard to kind of keep up with each client's sessions of information that was going on. So she decided to keep her own personal notebook with the sessions for these clients. So I believe one of our classes did discuss this, that it is wise to keep a different notebook just for the storyline so that you can keep up to date with your client's history and background, because oftentimes these medical records just want certain facts, and that's just about it. She has a difficult time regarding the payment because she's private practice. Obviously, payments don't come as fast as, say, if you're working for Kaiser Permanente or a healthcare system. You're pretty much on your own and have to figure it out. Those are the challenges that she faces at being a private practice MFT. When she was training and in her master's program, as she was doing her hours, her practicum hours, she was audited by Medi-Cal. And that was a little humbling for her because she, right off the bat, was a trainee and got audited. Let's see. And then for cultural awareness, because my MFT is private practice, she only was exposed to different cultures at the beginning of her career. She did work at a community health center, and she was exposed to a diverse group of clients, particularly immigrants, the LGBTQ community, families and couples, and various socioeconomic groups. So she had the ability to kind of be flexible and understand that background and get exposed to the different walks of life, so to speak. She did have diversity training in grad school, just as we are. But currently she does work with professionals only, so unfortunately she's not exposed to the multitude of cultural at this very time. There are different systems that she's exposed to, that she does have to keep up. She does recommend obviously being culturally aware and maintaining that the idea that nothing is set in stone, to always do research. We discussed licensing and what advice she could have to offer and what she went through. Because she is a California MFT, she did everything to get her MFT license here in California. She does recommend taking the national exam because the national exam is a lot easier to transfer than some statewide exams. She also advises to research which states you're interested in practicing prior to starting your practicum hours and the classes, so that you're able to get the classes needed and also the hours needed, because different states have different requirements. The challenges for future MFTs, she says, obviously when you're private practice, maintaining a steady income. As we all know in this profession, we get into it to help people. We want to give back to the community ourselves. So steady income is one that you really have to be aware of. You may have highs and lows throughout your career, and you have to be willing to work with that. She says finding a schedule that works with obtaining your hours after getting your license. So depending on what you want to do, how flexible you are, sometimes you may have to work that graveyard shift. That's the only time available that you could get your hours in after you get your master's degree. Learning how to navigate the billing and payments. This is for private practice. When you're working for a healthcare system, everything's kind of done by a different department. So she did state that when she was working in the community health centers, that was taken care of for her. But now being exposed to and being a private practice MFT, these are the challenges that she faces. I asked her what her thoughts are on the future of MFT as a profession. And she says that the ways of therapy being delivered will be evolving. As with the pandemic happened, prior to the pandemic, everybody was mainly going in person. Telehealth really wasn't a huge thing back then. Once the pandemic happened and we couldn't see people face to face, they looked into different avenues of how people can still get their mental health needed resources given and still be able to respect the isolation and the protection. And so that's when telehealth kind of took off, and mental telehealth mental telehealth took off. And that's when clients started seeing their therapist via Zoom or via the way Kaiser does it, via their Kaiser app. So also the session. So because it's now telehealth versus in person, patients are more likely to see their therapist on a regular basis. Long are the days when patients only see their therapist every month or every 6 months. If you need to see your therapist every week, then telehealth makes that a lot easier for patients. And so another tip she gives is the mindset of evolving clients that will allow more inclusivity. So the programs now that are established now weren't there years ago. So as the time goes, the programs and the techniques will be established to accommodate the ever-evolving changes of society. She hopes to potentially add a little bit more regulations to it just to get more clear cut. Not that it's a lot of gray area, but just a little bit more clear cut in their regulations. And she really hopes that the practicing across the states becomes a lot easier, because at the moment it's extremely difficult to transfer to different states. You have to make sure that your licenses, your hours particularly, can transfer over. And that's one of the hardest things that she's expressed. My next interviewee is Luis Figueroa. He's an MFT associate. He started his career off in Los Angeles, is currently in a different state, but he started all his schooling and his hours here in California. And so I asked him similar questions to Catherine. And the first question that I asked him was the challenges that he currently faces in his profession. He works in a prison environment, so the biggest one for him is confidentiality. He has a hard time with confidentiality because you're in a prison environment, and we all know the limitations to confidentiality, that it could be broken if something, there's red flags that Luis notices. So confidentiality cannot be guaranteed, obviously due to limitations, and the prison mates do see that. But he did state that they do eventually come out and they feel safe, and the environment that they are provided allows them to speak up. I asked him the impact law and ethics has on his profession. He says he strictly uses the AAMFT Code of Ethics, and he ensures his clients fully understand the limitations of confidentiality and the boundaries that are given. So the self-disclosure at the beginning of his sessions are extremely important to him. Particularly working in a prison environment, you do have to be extremely careful of what you say and how therapy is given. He discusses what he can and cannot disclose, and sometimes clients are hard to accept this. They want to be seen, they want to be helped, but at times maybe what they have to divulge may not be in the best interest to divulge, and so he has to clear cut and make sure that his clients understand that. I asked him about cultural awareness in his current profession, and he works in a prison environment, and even though, yes, he is Mexican American, he still faces a lot of scrutiny over that, and it all has to do with the environment that he's in. He's in a majority of Nigerian background when he's in the prison environment. While there are some others that speak Spanish, they look down upon them and they look weird when they are speaking to the inmates in Spanish. But he did say, regardless of the similarities, everyone's looked at individually, and at times different than the next. So while they may be okay with him now, the next minute they will not. He did say backgrounds have a significant impact on workers and inmates because of the backgrounds of the workers. They have their own prejudices and biases that they bring into the workplace, and that does affect how clients and the workers see him. There are language barriers, which honestly happen in any situation, that can affect clients and their sessions, and even just workmates and working in an environment. But however, he does end up sharing common experiences with clients, which allows clients to open up and express themselves. This is where it got really interesting, because I felt for him for the licensing and regulations part of it. He started school out here in California, and he did a lot of hours, 1,700 hours. And when he decided to move, those hours no longer counted. And so he had to restart the hours, which is a lot to do. We've already, as students, have gotten this far. I can't imagine losing all the hours and face-to-face time that I had already done. And so he really, really, really highly suggests that you do your research into the states that you want to practice in. Yes, we live in California. It's a huge state. There are great possibilities here. But if we ever down the line want to do telehealth and patients are in a different state, we must make sure that we can see them as California therapists, and if not, what we can do as therapists in California to see other patients in different states. He also says that look into states that recognize LMFTs versus LPCCs, which are licensed professional clinical counselors. They are similar, but MFTs obviously focus on marriage and families, whereas clinical counselors is just strictly counseling. I see all walks of life at the same time. So look at states really identify you as an MFT versus a LPCC. And then he says, make sure you keep up with regulations and requirements in the state you're practicing. So obviously in California, make sure we're up to date on our hours and what we have to do. Alliant does a really great job at keeping us focused and keeping us on track and making sure we're on track to graduate and also complete the hours needed to graduate. I asked him the challenges for future MFTs, especially that he's an associate. It's a little bit more closer to what we're doing at the moment. He says that it's crazy enough, but people use ChatGPT to determine solutions and therapy techniques. And he's fearful that that's going to be replaced. They're going to replace us. Because as we all know, Google and WebMD can become our doctors at times. And it is true. It could happen for mental health. And that can lead down a really dangerous, slippery slope. that may not be the best. Again, he cannot stress enough to research on the state requirements because of his personal situation. I asked him of the future of the MFT profession, and he said the field has become more inclusive. As I stated prior, the techniques that we have now and the approaches we have now did not exist fully a few years ago, and as society evolved, so does our techniques. We're learned to be more inclusive, be more culturally aware, and that also helps with the clients to be able to feel more comfortable. He did say that this profession is always seeking to accommodate different populations and specialties, such as suicidology, which he is currently found really interesting, which focus on preventing and intervening suicide, which I particularly would be interested in, and I think that'd be really great. So now we're going to take a look at the importance of awareness and sensitivity when applying the AAMFT Code of Ethics in a multicultural context. And so I'll start off saying that given the Western-centric nature of psychology, where it's rooted concepts in boundaries and expression, some individuals may not initially want to trust you, and they may not initially divulge your information so easily. And therefore, therapists must maintain a heightened level of awareness to ensure client comfort. And this ensures that conducting a thorough background research and refraining from assuming if all clients share or adhere to these assumptions. And the first thing I'll talk about is cultural competency. The AAMFT Code 3.1 Maintenance of Competency states, therapists must pursue knowledge of new developments through education, training, or supervised experience, meaning we must be competent in what we do. Therefore, in our field or specialty, we must, especially working with a multicultural lens and a context, be culturally competent. And that means always willing to learn, never assuming that our clients are this particular background just because they check off Hispanic or Latino or African American. We must not assume that they follow certain rituals and certain ideologies. When they come into our session, they're open book and everything is a go. And the AAMFT Code of Ethics emphasizes respecting our clients' dignity and worth, and they recognize that people come from various cultural, ethical, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds, which allows, and if we do this really allows our clients to build trust and build that therapeutic alliance that we really, really want at the end. Another one is avoiding cultural bias and stereotyping. The AAMFT Code 1.1 Non-Discrimination states, therapists are not to discriminate based on race, ethnicity, religion, age, socioeconomic status, disability, gender, health status, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or relationship status. Meaning, none of exactly what I said prior, we are not to assume anything of our clients. Does not matter where they came from, how they identify. We are not to assume anything. Again, where they're an open book, we're an open book, and they come in without any biases. Another one is professional integrity. Therapists are expected to maintain a higher level of professional competence and integrity. And by doing this, they make sure that they're aware of all the cultural backgrounds of their clients and how potentially that their own cultural backgrounds can influence how they interact with clients from other backgrounds. Another one is cultural humility. The AAMFT Code 3.6 Development of New Skills states, therapists take steps to ensure they are competent in their line of work, to protect clients from possible harm. Meaning, again, always expand your knowledge, never accept the fact that you learned enough, always be willing to learn, and this comes back to protecting our clients and having that ability to do no harm. Now we're going to discuss the importance of law and ethics in the practice of MFT in the recovery-oriented public mental health service systems and integrative care systems. The first big one is licensure. You want to make sure that you're properly trained and that you have the ability and that you're competent in what you're doing and follow all the requirements to obtain your license. A huge one is informed consent. We want to make sure our clients know and have the autonomy to make their own decisions prior to even starting their sessions, because it really helps them also understand what is going on. Another huge one is the confidentiality and privacy. Of course, we all know HIPAA. If you work for Kaiser, HIPAA is a huge one in there. It protects clients' information to make sure it's kept safe and not shared with anybody not authorized to view it. And just a side note, if we effectively provide therapy, therapists must be cognizant of the broader context of human challenges, regardless of the setting in which they work. Another one is competency. MFTs are expected to provide competent care, meaning they stay within their scope and they seek assistance when needed. A big one is duty to protect. We have a legal and ethical obligation to intervene if a client is at risk to themselves or others, meaning confidentiality could be broken if we suspect that there's one of those two things. Another one is the legal protections against discrimination. The American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, provides legal protection to clients that ensuring everybody has access to mental health resources without any biases. And then the client-centered recovery, it's like these programs are focused on the importance of client choice, empowerment, and self-determination. The Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act requires MFTs respect clients' autonomy and decisions about their treatment. And this goes back to autonomy, meaning the clients know exactly what they're doing and have the right education and information to make a sound choice. Now I'm going to discuss the future of MFT as a profession from my point of view, and this is the fun part. I think that MFT is going to ever evolve with society as time grows. Relationships evolve just like that, so will the MFT profession and the mental health realm. Especially now with telehealth being included, there are going to be multiple ways and aspects that patients can be seen and get the help they need. Another thing too is that MFT is just one of those selfless endeavors. You know, we do this line of work to serve and to give back. But let's not forget to take care of ourselves and therefore in turn take care of our clients and be competent and well established there. And then the big one for me is the need now for mental health. I'm excited and happy that now mental health is being taken more seriously. Unfortunately, it was because of the pandemic, which was a huge thing for people and very sad. But nonetheless, it is on its way up, and I can't wait to see where this profession takes me.